All right, let's try and continue with the coverage around this deadly crash. Joining me now is accident reconstruction expert Craig Proctor-Parker, who is following this particular story closely as well. Craig, good to talk to you this evening. I think I read a part of what you were quoted as saying in one of the Sunday papers. Take us through what you have seen here and your conclusions, albeit preliminary, as to who was in the wrong here. We've seen those that dash cam footage. What are you seeing here as an accident reconstruction expert?
Good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to chat. It's a tragic situation, and unfortunately these things become high profile once something tragic like this has happened. There's no question the minibus taxi driver in that particular vehicle was overtaking. What's of particular interest, I mean, if one watches that video footage clearly, that taxi driver had opportunity to return to his lane. The unusual action of moving to the right-hand side is essentially what the huge problem is.
In the Sunday Times, you say that there were a good few seconds before either driver could have made a move that could have avoided this accident. I think your voice is possibly one of the first few that are coming through to say, yes, the taxi driver was definitely in the wrong here, but the truck driver could have also done something. Am I understanding you correctly?
Yeah, so one must caution. Obviously, we're just looking at video footage that is supplied on social media, so I stress that from the outset. Very often that kind of video footage comes with what we call embedded data, which would be things like speed, movement, positioning. So one would need to look at that very carefully. But at face value, if you look at that video footage, there's at least 5 seconds between the onset of that very low resolution footage from where the two drivers have what we call line of sight of each other. 5 seconds is a substantial period of time for someone to slow down, stop, move to another lane. So it's interesting to see that footage and see that there are other options available to both drivers.
Someone will say, is 5 seconds long enough? But also importantly, the accident before it happens, you suggest that the taxi could have actually been able to go back to his lane. That suggests that the drivers who were on his lane were actually seeing what potentially could happen here, and they sort of left room for him. Am I correct?
Again, we don't want to jump to conclusions, but at face value, looking at that video footage, if one looks at the minibus taxi directly alongside the crash taxi, before the crash taxi veers to his right-hand side, you can see there's a very clear and definitive left-hand movement of the taxi that was in its correct lane. So that would immediately imply that there was high probability that there was option or space for the crash taxi to move to the left, or so to say, return to his left-hand lane. So yes, at face value, there's definitely alternative options that could have been taken.
Negligence is very much part of the equation here when we now talk about the charges that the minibus taxi driver is facing in court. Murder has been added here. In fact, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, it sort of is the main charge. Do you think there's any escaping that charge, that murder charge, based on what you have seen here and the very analysis you are giving us here tonight about the possible options available to him?
Again, one needs to be very cautious here. I mean, the investigating officers as well as the public prosecutors would look at this very carefully. those people that would look at this are experienced people, and they would make a judgment call as to what appropriate charges would be given. I have to say, at face value, it is somewhat unusual that a charge of attempted murder or murder is being brought to the fore. Normally, it would be culpable homicide and reckless and negligent driving. The key issue with murder is one needs to show intent. I suppose one could argue that the intent is because the minibus taxi opted to go to the right-hand side towards the truck, so to say. But again, that's something that would need to play out in court through the evidence.
Sure. Craig, I mean, how do you argue against a murder charge when you see the dashcam footage, when you know that you are on the opposite side of the lane on the road, because it's a two-way street? There are cars going one direction and the others coming the opposite direction. This taxi driver was in the wrong, so there's no way he can escape a murder charge. At least I'm arguing. Are you saying that there could be mitigating factors?
Yeah, there's definitely mitigating factors. And again, I stress that would need to be played out in court and the evidence would need to be led. But let's not make any bones of it. Even facing 12 of, stand under correction, I think it's 14, is facing 14 charges of culpable homicide, reckless and negligent driving, among whatever other charges may be listed, is no laughing matter. That's a serious matter. You've been charged with culpable homicide. That in itself can have your license revoked. That in itself is highly likely to see someone in this situation, if they are found guilty, going to jail.
Craig, thank you very much for your time and analysis here tonight. Craig Proctor-Parker is an accident reconstruction expert. Talking to him on the back of the article that I read in the Sunday Times today, and a very, very interesting read indeed.